Here.
Don.
Here.
Mr. Dempsey Vic is not here. The mayor is here. Katie,
Here.
Grant,
Here.
Tyler,
Hello.
Mitch, do you have any minutes for us, Tyler?
Not at this time.
Not this time. Okay, we'll pass on the approval of the minutes. Is there any correspondence? Oh, by we need to be done and out of here by 7 p.m. There's another meeting following. Is that correct?
6:30 would be preferred.
Okay, we'll have
Thank you. But we'll work with it.
correspondence. Any correspondence? Financial reports. Okay,
Robert usually does this, but I did have the ones for May claims for payment that are in front of you. The salaries and wages, airport manager, 10% the town clerk. There was no office supplies, no postage. You can see the total utilities at 167.54. The information technology, and the only thing that kind of was out of the ordinary is that we bought new windsocks and replacement windsocks at 115 from Montana Aeronautics.
and those were
And Craig.
Dwayne, and Dawn.
Okay. So that would have been June. I haven't done June yet. Early May. Okay. I will look into that and get with Robert on that.
Any other questions, discussion? Engineers report, and Tyler, we got construction here and some other things, so looks like A, B, C. All be tied together here. How's it going with them?
Really good. It's going really good. I can either go over construction now or we can wait until new business.
Well, why don't you just do your engineer report? If you have nothing, we'll just go on.
Nothing beyond construction.
Okay, let's go to construction a little bit later on.
Okay.
So, we go to old business, and that's the administration building. And let's see, as we're looking at that, that needs to be bid. When we went to Montana Aeronautics, I took a sample bid over there. And we were funded for that amount, but since it exceeds $10,000, if I'm correct, we need to advertise that. And Tyler was going to get with Katie and provide her a bid outline, and then we're going to post that for bids. I believe it needs to be 3 papers for 2 weeks, I think, is the way it works. So what it would be is a building, it is 14 by 32, is what the original specifications were. Operating area for flight planning and those kind of things. So it would be a pilot administration building is what it would be, and it would be located to the south of the current parking area. And we will need to go before the council to see. The bid that I got was about $37,000, and that did not include the foundation. So we have to allow for some construction cost in concrete. Right, Katie?
Correct.
Anybody got any questions, ideas, suggestions? We were going to have a shower in it, but that may turn into a maintenance problem. I thought we would remove that and just have a small bathroom. And possibly instead of having hand towels, we would have an electric hand dryer so that we didn't have to clean up the towels. And that seems to be a problem. All of this turns into a maintenance issue, and since we're volunteers, it might be easier to do that. If anybody has any suggestions on ones that you've seen that are nice, Dwayne, I think you've seen several that are really nice. You might talk to Katie and let her know.
What now?
If you have any suggestions on the places that you've been that you've seen that are really nice. I mean,
Well,
Just, and not now, but I mean, just tell Katie at that time so we can
Just
keep
have
this
one
meeting.
comment about
Okay.
bathroom, if you make it big enough in the first place to put in a shower or whatever later.
I see. Okay, good point. Good point.
I just want, you mentioned the foundation, what about the sewer, water, power?
All of that, yeah, we'll have to look at all of that, yes. Any other questions, comments? Rich Perry and his hangar update. Rich is out of the country and unavailable, so let's pass this on to the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is degrass strip. Don, you wanted this one, so what do we got?
Well, couple things, since we can't land anymore between the taxiway and the existing runway, there's plenty of room to the south of the runway that we could put a grass strip. And several people's already landed over there. And one of the reasons is tires on these airplanes aren't cheap. They're like $3,600, $3,700 for a pair of tires. And landing on the asphalt all the time just eats them up. So, and there's really no repair. Some guys are putting on bed liner and Herculon and everything else to try to save the tires, but it gets a little expensive. So we'd like to, whatever the separation needs to be from the edge of the runway, go over there and measure it and start rolling it, mowing it, seeding it, or whatever we gotta do to get a grass strip to the south side. I know Brad and Jeff, myself, and whoever else is gonna put these tires on is gonna need someplace else to land besides the runway.
Okay, so with the new intermediate taxiway, what you're proposing is that we just go use that to go on over to that area.
Would be fine. I mean, we could taxi back over after you land. It's just that first inertia
Right, yeah,
jump to start is what eats the tires on. And so even if we landed long on 1-2, it's still uphill, and we could still get off at the end of the runway and get to the end of 30 for the taxiway. We don't really need to, go all the way across where the intersection taxiway is.
I see. Sure, okay. So to proceed with that, we need to talk with the FAA, and I initially did hear several months ago, and then we had this thing happen, and that kind of put everything in flux. So Brad, you and Jeff, you're interested in doing that. On the rolling and the mowing, who would be in charge of doing that? All volunteers right now are kind of tapped out. So
We'll still do it ourselves.
just do it ourselves. Okay, what will we use for mower?
Hopefully we can use the airport's mower, but we mowed it between the taxiway and the runway ourselves and used our own mowers, which is fine. But if we don't have to, we fine too.
What about roll, you say the rolling,
We borrow a tractor and all the way to do it. We've rolled the whole airport before, and so we just go over and do that spot.
It gets lumped up with the bunch grasses. It doesn't make a bunch of, but then if you roll it in the spring or when it's wet, you can roll it down. So Katie, I guess you and I'll need to, you have any comments?
Not right now. We'll have to discuss, how we would proceed with that. Cost, maintenance, mower, who's willing to volunteer their time to mow it.
We've done it ourselves up until we can't land it in the taxiway. We moved that ourselves, rolled it, seeded it, no cost to anybody.
And so basically, they're volunteers, just like all the rest of it, all the rest of the things. If you're using it, you guys are okay with that kind of stuff?
and we'll volunteer? Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Probably
Okay.
the biggest thing would be the grass seed. But it honestly doesn't even need it. If I've walked it several times and it's flat, the grass is in good shape with some mowing current as is, it's very, very safe to land out there. And the clearance from the was beyond the width of our concrete runway. So there's more than enough, not only width for the runway, but width on both sides of the runway for clearance as well.
Yeah, and for the record, that was Jeff Shapiro, is that right?
Shapiro.
And Shapiro, and has an aircraft up there, big tires, nice unit. So, I guess the biggest thing that we would need to do is Katie and I need to get a hold of the FAA and make sure it fits with all their stuff. Yeah,
Can I add one other thing?
Sure.
Too? On top of just the idea of saving tires for a few airplanes, I think that it would be incredibly beneficial for people to have a place to practice short field and soft field takeoffs in the curriculum for any private pilot. And you can do it in Hamilton and you can't in Missoula. So having that, I think, would be a huge improvement and a benefit to a lot of pilots around the area.
Would it be conducive to be able to support camping up there and promote that, people flying in and camping?
I've never done it before, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen.
well, yeah, we did with that trike group.
We did.
We
Yeah.
had a special deal. I can't turn that way, Reggie.
Like a week.
Jeff, does it need mowing? Do I need to run out there with my big mower and grind it all up first?
No, I think, honestly, Don and I've talked about it. I think if we went out and shot it with transit and made sure that things were straight and that the proper clearances and the width was acceptable to everybody, I think we could, knock the grass down and or roll it and then mow it properly. And in its current state, it would be absolutely fine.
So basically, there's no cost to the airport. What'd you say?
I don't think that there would be any cost. I think that between those of us that are willing to volunteer, I think we could have a flat, well-maintained grass runway without any additional cost.
Okay, Katie, could maybe we talk with the FAA about it?
We could talk to the FAA. I'd like to hear from Tyler if he has any concerns.
No, I think that's the best route to take is just to check with the FAA. I mean, it's not the same as two parallel runways. So I'm guessing there's probably different criteria for it where they could potentially be closer, but really the FAA, would be the first place I would start because they're all over the place.
Months ago, when I discussed it a little bit with Diane, she did express some concerns in parallel. Actually, depending on how many people in the pattern, and she had some other questions, but I just kind of dropped it then, and then this thing happened. Behind, so okay, you're okay with that, Katie?
That's fine.
Don, can I get a motion that you ask Katie and I to proceed with the FAA and trying to get this?
Sure. I move that Craig Thomas and Katie can contact the FAA and make sure separation from the 30 and 12 is adequate to put the strip in to the south side of the runway.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
I
That,
have a question.
yes, sir. A little late. Go ahead.
Will it be rolled out 3,800 feet?
No.
How long?
Half the distance of the runway.
So it's really not going to be real big for a standard 72 or whatever maybe.
If you want to practice short field, it's perfect.
That's true.
There's a lot of people that want to go over into Idaho backcountry land and they're 800-foot strips or 1,000-foot strips.
All right. So it'd be half.
Yeah, and I think Jeff's point about a training location, so somebody that is practicing to be getting their license in Missoula or Hamilton would be really cool to do short cross country and come to Stevensville and land or be training at Stevensville, be able to do that. The asset of the airport. Is that what you're thinking, Jeff?
Yes, and it seemed to me when I walked it that we do have 1,800 to 2,000 feet pretty easily available. So maybe a little more than half. And I would think 2,000 feet for even an underpowered Cessna is doable. The soft field, short field techniques we're working on.
Okay, so you guys just give Katie and I another job. Okay. New business, construction. There you go, Tyler.
All right. Construction's been going great so far. They've removed all the pavement on the old section of the parallel taxiway, and they've been cutting in the shoulders, so we're widening our shoulders quite a bit to just because it's technically a B2 taxiway, whereas before it was a B1, so we need that extra width. So they've been rocking and rolling, and Grant over there is with Morrison Merrily. He's been down here full time doing a good job keeping everybody in line, keeping me in the loop. Yeah, well, you got just a little bit more digging on the shoulders to go, and then from there we've got a culvert that we need to install under the midfield taxiway, and so I guess kind of to back up, I guess we haven't met in a while, but we originally had phase 1 be the north apron. Now we're having phase 1 actually be the parallel taxiway and the midfield apron, or the midfield taxiway. And so we're kind of starting on the far south end of the airfield and work our way back. So right now this is, full aircraft operations in terms of, everybody's able to get out and get to the runway, and they just can't taxi on that little, old taxiway strip. And so once they complete, and I apologize, I was thinking that we would have like a projector or something. I could kind of show a few things, but I'll try to kind of describe it real quick. So we're including the midfield as part of this phase 1. And I just got an updated schedule from the contractor. And he's saying he's scheduled about 30 working days for schedule 1 or phase 1. So that'll include basically paving all the way to seating the shoulders of that parallel taxiway, installation of a new culvert underneath the new midfield and the midfield taxiway. And so there are 3 kind of major, segments of time that are going to potentially impact aircraft. The first one is with the midfield taxiway because we have to do work obviously inside the runway safety area, tying into the runway. And so they can do all their work outside of that runway safety area, but that last little bit, we have to shut down the runway. And so we talked about this a few times last year and kind of tried to come up with a way to do that without impacting or minimizing the impact on aircraft. And so what we have in the specifications is that, and the contractor has lighted axes, so they're just going to pull them out. You don't have to put that fabric down, so it's going to be a lot faster. And so they're going to close down the runway from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. And so flights can come in and out prior to 10 a.m. And then after 4 p.m., same thing. They'll still be working on the site, but the runway will be open, outside that window.
Tyler, looking here on the schedule, it looks like that's a 7-day period, so everybody just have to check the NOTAMs and see what's going on.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep doing our best to keep the airfield open.
Yeah, and we're gonna do it'd be even shorter if it wasn't for we've got some electrical work we gotta run some new circuits and tie into the runway circuit and everything like that. So and that's 7 working days. So it would actually be when they're saying Wednesday to Thursday, not including the weekend. And as we kind of progress down the line, it's a little bit more fluid just with the schedule, but these guys so far have been really on schedule, doing a good job. We might have a couple rain days. We had a rain day yesterday, but they've been rocking and rolling. So and they've got a pretty good crew, Pavlik Electric, who actually did all the lighting in 2016. So they do a good job. So the second phase would be reconstructing the south apron. And the south apron is obviously where the fuel is. That's going to be the second sort of interruption to aircraft use around the airport. And so during that time, the South Apron will be closed, but we've worked out a deal. I think we talked about this before, where we're actually going to provide it's kind of hard to explain without showing it, but provide a little temporary taxi route to allow that cluster of hangars. I guess it's hard to explain, but bottom line is all hangars should have access to the airport, to the runway throughout the life of the project.
You'll just have to taxi a little bit longer.
You'll just have to
It's
taxi a
east
little
of
longer.
Dusty's shop there. And it's parallel to the entrance road, so it would be behind Perry's on the east.
Yeah.
And so you just taxi through that. There's a few steel posts in there, but not enough. You're done. We'll have to pull a couple of those out there, lay some asphalt down. They're not going to do it until they bring the asphalt laying machines. We don't have to move it twice. And we're trying to use extra asphalt from the midfield and the taxiway to put in there, so we don't have a big cost of that. It'll be a light duty temporary kind of thing. And it looks like here on the schedule, what I'm seeing, that there is about an 11-day period that you may not be able to get the fuel. You'll still be able to utilize the airfield, but you might not be able to.
And well, and to those 11 days are basically starting, hit the ground running. So we might have a day prior that we need to set up barricades and stuff like that, but and if there's any weather days, which it's springtime, but so far we've kind of lucked out. We've only had one weather day. So did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask back on the phase one, the east taxiway and the midfield. You said the airport would be shut down from 10 to 4 for 7 days.
And that's
business days, right? So on the weekend,
Weekends open.
weekends just normal operation.
contractor will be working on the weekend. So
You can operate during the rest of the period. There's just going to be people out there, so you're going to have to watch what's going on. I mean, if you're going to land at noon, those guys are going to be there. They got radios. You call in, let them know. Might have to circle the time or two pattern. Go ahead and land. Is that right, guys?
yeah, well, if there's maybe one or two, it might not be a big deal. But if there's too much, then it's going to really slow down.
Yeah.
So I would say if we could do everything we can to just keep traffic off of it during that time. Obviously, if there's an emergency landing, or if somebody knows that they need to land at noon, especially if it's like a day in advance, we can work with them. But
Jeff and Brad down there are going to use 200 feet on the end of it's never going to get to. So they don't have, what happens is when you're coming in there, they got to sweep the runway. We got to take the fog off. Okay, so they can't have any dirt, rock, and that kind of stuff. So they want you taxing through that stuff. So that's what really slows them down.
well, and the other thing is
Interrupts what they're doing.
too is they're going to be digging. They're going to be hogging out, sub-excavating right next to the runway, which is going to be a big drop off. And so when they're done, they actually have to fill that in and basically shape that shoulder temporarily so it's back into spec tolerance before we.
Do we have approximate dates as to those 5 days and then those 7 days?
Yeah. So so the midfield closure on the current schedule, it's
7 July and 21st of July.
or no, it'll be June 24th to July 2nd is what's on the schedule right now for the midfield taxiway closure.
I'm sorry. Right. I'm sorry.
Is that scheduled on the airport website?
No, but I can I'll share it for you.
Put it up on there.
Yeah, I just kind of got it, and I was hoping I could put it on the screen. But
I mean, that way anybody else can download it.
that's right.
Yeah, this is all pretty fluid because we changed the phasing and that kind of changed things, and it took the group a little bit of time to get the dates done.
As for the no no access for fuel. Right now, we're looking at around July 7th to July 21st. So that looking at about 11 working days for that. And we looked at it 27 different ways, trying to come up with a way to
Yeah.
phase that differently, and it's just you know, we just kept on coming back to we just got to close it. And we're looking at doing like a temporary access somewhere. We're just like we're just gonna have to bite the bullet and knock it out.
Long as we can fly, that's a good deal. And we
Yeah.
won't be able to fly every day, but just those hours and those certain days. Grant, you got anything? You're out there watching and trying to keep getting run over.
No, it's going good.
Doing good, huh?
Making good progress, so,
He's keeping those guys in line.
yeah, pretty impressed with the work they're doing out there. And they're chugging right along, and any questions they have, they always come to us, so they're clarifying anything that they're a little fuzzy on, which has been good, so.
Yeah, the superintendent is just getting off the Russell Street Bridge project, so he's actually the superintendent for that. So
Yeah.
this is probably
That was
just
intense.
like,
That was a bunch of changes.
yeah,
Any questions, any other questions, comments?
We will have to check that too. I don't know if it was 10 to 3 is what's stuck in my head. Or,
I double checked it. So it's we had it 10 to 4, but you know, we can potentially might be able to adjust that if there's something that comes up. Really, I think more than anything, it's just having advance notice. If there's something critical that where somebody needs to get out or in, we do our best to accommodate that.
Is there any reason why we couldn't get a hold of Choice? Maybe they could bring down a temporary truck versus fuel?
Absolutely, you could. I think, Craig, you were looking into that at one point. And
I did,
pan
and I
out.
just kind of got resting on if you want to call them.
Sure, I will.
That
I'll
would,
take care of it.
boy, that would really solve our second impact. If there
Well,
was-
if you could fly every day and you could get fuel.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. We were down a long time on this last budget. Any
Yeah.
other questions, comments? Thanks, Tyler.
Well, I was,
Oh, you have more? Go.
I mean, so those are the 2 phases, the first 2 phases. The third one is the north apron. And so the impact on that is going to be tie downs. So when we do phase 2, that's the south apron. Katie will be coordinating with everybody to move all the aircraft to the north apron while we're doing the south apron. But then once we get done with the south apron, then we're going to have to basically figure something else out because the way the phasing works, they're going to do all the tie downs together. So the payment's going to be there, but
No tie-ins.
no tie downs. And so one thing we're looking at doing is mowing out a piece of, an area off to the side of one of the aprons. And Katie could probably explain it better than me, but and just use big concrete like eco blocks. And then, you can just tie down on those temporarily. It's not ideal, but at least, in the big picture, it's going to be a lot more efficient to do it where they just hit all of those tie downs at once. And, we looked at trying to cut them up where we could do a couple, but you look at like multiple mobilizations coming in. And so,
Cost gets out of hand real quick.
yeah, it's just not as efficient. So in the long run, I think it would take longer because, we would have to wait. If we get done with the south apron, then we would have to wait to, cut those tie downs in and let the concrete cure for at least 7 days, if not longer. So that would kind of hold us up from going into phase 3. And so that's kind of the third big, potential impact to aircraft users. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of aircraft that are using the tie downs, at least from the airport. There might be a couple of them. So there's always, the potential itinerant aircraft coming in, not realizing there's no tie downs there. So, we'll be getting notice out, information information out to people. It's going to be in the NOTAM. So if you read the NOTAM, it'll be there saying, really no tie downs, or, they might be able to use one of the temporary ones. But, so that we're looking at 14 working days at this point. And now that we're looking pretty far down the road, that I don't necessarily see that coming too much sooner, but if anything, maybe it might be pushed a little bit later. Really, it's like we're working within 90 calendar days, and that's kind of how I'm looking at this project. We're looking at 90 calendar days, and we got 3 segments of time that are going to affect the aircraft. And so we're working with the contractor, working with Katie, working with all you guys to do everything we can to minimize impact to aircraft. Be a couple, but it'll be really nice when it's all done.
Anything else, Tyler? Any other comments?
Nope.
Katie, plane movement.
So we're looking for volunteers for plane movement. So for the South Apron, we're looking to have all those aircraft off by July 1st, 2020, so they can start the South Apron. And for the North Apron, we're looking to have all aircraft off by no later than July 20th of 2020. Because they're scheduled to start the 21st, so even earlier than that maybe, but we were kind of looking at that. Tyler and I were looking at that on the 20th would be a good day.
So we got a couple of airplanes that have flat tires.
Correct.
Been there for a while. We're not sure who owns them. So what do you want to do?
So what we're looking to do is the ones that are abandoned and have the flat tires, we're looking to have those moved to that center where the windsock is. There's about 3 out there that I'm thinking of, and just stage them there with the concrete blocks. The other 2, I'm trying to get in touch with their owners and see if they will move their aircraft, if they want to have a temporary place to put them, move them to the north hangar, or move them to another designated location on the airfield, and or if they want to fly them off of the airfield for that duration of the project. Once we move to the north ramp, we're going to have to look at those aircraft because one doesn't have an engine, but at least it has the tires.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Tyler, from the south ramp, those, what, two 152s and 2 150s that are the flat tires, how far back off that existing surface is the work gonna need to be, like tractor movement, whatever, cutting back? In other words, you can't just pull them back onto the grass and
Right.
call it good.
No.
Yeah, because they're going to have to reshape those shoulders.
How far, about 30 feet?
30 feet would be more than enough. I'm thinking even
So do we have a
20
plan?
feet, but I'll verify with the contractor. It's more, because the shoulders, we're raising the grade a little bit on the apron, so we're going to be kind of catching a little bit further out, but not much. And
Let's say
so
30 feet, just assuming 30 feet. Do we have a plan how to move those tired ones? Anybody have any dollies or?
You might try gearing them up.
That way we'd be too lucky to have that happen, but it looks like we're gonna have to string through some tubes and some air. You got there? Okay. So we're gonna need, what kind of time frame do we need for some volunteers? Can we schedule something, Katie? Do you know?
You said July 1st.
We said July 1st, so I was thinking that weekend before, at least for those ones that are going to be the bigger issues that
That's a good idea, Brad.
I mean, the
No, we
fact
had 10 guys who just pick the stupid things up and walk over them. They're only gonna weigh, what, that thing weigh maybe 800 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting that there's room for an organized day.
Right, yeah,
Brad,
right.
but there might be, the folks that might be hanging around this Saturday, just say, for example.
The sooner the better.
Okay,
Okay,
so I'll get over there and mow that in the next day or two, and then if the airplanes show up out there,
Why don't,
I'll
can I
get them tied
suggest,
down.
can you borrow it?
we're gonna try to air the tires first. Those ones, I mean, if you just gotta keep airing them for what, 15 minutes to get them moved?
Yeah, yeah.
And the ones at 75, they'll go this week, so.
so the only thing is we have to get the concrete blocks from the construction. They would have to bring them down.
Okay, if you coordinate that, I'll mow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then soon as you guys see the concrete blocks out there, if you have a group together at one time, it makes sense.
So we'll put a rush on getting those concrete blocks, or rush-ish. I mean, it's not gonna, they've got them sitting in their yard, so it's just a matter of throwing it on a mowboy and just bringing it.
Well, I'll try and mow it tonight, so we get, there you go.
I'll work with Tyler on that.
Sounds like a ad hoc plan, and we'll see how it goes, okay?
Okay,
You good with that, Katie?
I'm good with that.
Okay, millings.
So my understanding on this one is, people have been asking about millings, and we are not doing anything with them until the end of the project. They've been asking if they can have them or sell them or anything. We're just not doing anything and making a decision on them until the end of the project.
Interrupt the construction.
Yep.
Those guys got enough stuff out there without somebody showing up with their tractor.
Yep.
Okay. Millings stay where they're at. Barricades.
Do you want to discuss barricade removal?
Sure.
Okay.
So there's these barricades, which they're basically markers for the segmented circle. They must have just been a couple extra ones. And it's funny, like I don't even remember them being out there. It's like you just walk right by them, and it's just like, oh, I guess there's a giant segmented circle marker right here.
Let me give a little history there.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
They're basically in the way when you're plowing snow and anything else, or other people way out there. I actually plowed the snow there a couple of years ago, and the FAA contacted me that I could not just plow the snow up to the barricade. It had to be visual. So we had to run a town backhoe up there and dig all of the ones that I had camouflaged with snow out. So that was kind of a wake-up call to me on moving the things and blocking the things and everything else. But they have been a headache to plowing forever. We had one move and some other things happen here, and it appears to me, Tyler, if I'm understanding this right, we could contact the FAA and just move them and take them away, but we need to get there. Is that right?
I would say you can just go ahead and move them. And I spoke to Steve Egerbrecht with FAA. He's the compliance, specialist, and so he's the person that really and he just so happens to used to be pretty involved with Stevensville back in the day. And he's like, I have no idea why those are there, but it probably be a good idea to eventually move them, because if you're going to have a reflector or some kind of sign that's designated the end of a taxiway, it needs to be frangible, which means it needs to be made to run over. And in this case, they're not. And
So
so,
there's like 5 or 6 of the things that go in front of your hanger.
yeah.
And then there's these,
So
what you're saying is we can just go ahead and have them go someplace else?
Yeah.
So if we were to take them over to the concrete culverts and stuff that's over there, we've got a little kind of
Junkyard.
storage area.
Storage area.
We could put them over there where that's at. So any method to get them over there is fine, just get them
Yeah.
all going.
Yeah,
Okay.
the FAA's fine with moving them.
Okay, okay, here we go.
So you guys are good with us going ahead and having Public Works come up and do that?
Sure. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Tenant meetings. Katie, what you have on that?
So I was proposing speak up into here. I was proposing to initiate a tenant meeting once a month as a way to facilitate communication between the airport and the manager in a more of a public setting to get issues that are coming out at the airport. And it would be held probably like a Thursday night, or we could decide what day it would happen, but before the board meeting comes up, so that those issues can get on the agenda for the board meeting, and so that we're not trying to haphazardly get through something or have things come up in that way. So that was my kind of solution to some of the lack of communication between maybe the town, the manager, and the airport, and try and facilitate that a little more.
So instead of having a ad hoc Saturday meeting, we would have an actual scheduled meeting?
Correct.
Okay. So you'll organize, get back to us on when that's gonna happen?
I will
details?
kind of, yes, I will kind of take a poll of what day works or what people are thinking, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so that would be a good thing to do in the administration building.
Is that something we can, it'd have to be ADA accessible and,
I would imagine that building would be anyway.
okay,
SRA building, and then that would go. We can do the SRE if you start this early.
okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
Budget?
That was a Robert. He's not here.
I can,
You want to do that?
well, I can just share a few.
Okay.
He's actually working on the budget right now, which is why he can't be here. We've been working on it most of the day. Budget workshops kick off this evening with the town council, and we're projecting to have a budget adopted by July 1st. I think the big budget issues that relate back to the airport and its board more or less have to do with fees. I think Robert indicated he was working with Katie to kind of analyze what fees needed to be in order to sustain operations and kind of make sure things were actuarially sound. I think that's largely still in progress. You're not going to see, certainly not going to see fee increases on existing leases because we're past that June 1st deadline to get that to you guys. And so the administration would make the recommendation that we start early at looking at the up to 10% increase that would take effect on existing leases, but then bring forward, as we previously discussed, a revised lease rate for all new leases coming forward to the board. And I understand there's maybe one or two leases out there that are pending for that decision. And so I would expect in July, we should have something formal to bring forward for the board's approval in terms of new leases. And then we can ratify that with the city council late July.
Restating what you're saying is the leases that are current leases would increase after, not this year, but the following year, and they would be a 10% limit on those, but new leases come in are yet to be determined, but they will be at a much higher rate.
I would caution the use of much higher rate. I don't know what the rate will be, but it would certainly be a higher rate than what we're charging currently, depending on what the final results of an analysis look like. I think the more leases that come forward, I think that that's probably going to keep your lease rate down, right? Because you're spreading the cost across many instead of over just a few. So
User fees remaining the same? Well, that's.
yeah, I guess the bottom line is as of July 1st, 2020, there are not any new increases to fees, with the exception of in August, we would implement a new lease rate for new leases. But the standard leases were not, or excuse me, the standard fees were not projecting or proposing at this time any increases to those fees. Just because we're adamant we want to get this budget adopted by July 1st. And of course that coincides with your billing anyway, so.
Any questions, comments?
On business fees, you guys at the airport are paying 10 times what the businesses in town are paying. So wouldn't it be fair to increase the city, you just mentioned, spread it across more businesses? Wouldn't it be fair to raise the business fees of the city of Stevensville businesses? And if these guys are already paying 10 times the amount.
The business fee for airport users goes directly back into the airport. The town of Stevensville doesn't necessarily use that money for any other purpose but to support airport operations. In fact, it stays directly in the airport fund. We increased business licensing fees across the rest of the city from $25 to $50, and largely received no issues on that. But that funding goes back into economic development for the downtown businesses. It doesn't affect the airport, nor does your business fee affect the downtown businesses. So if the airport was willing to give up that revenue to put it towards the same purposes that the rest of the businesses are paying towards it, then we could look at a fee change. But right now that fee is sustaining a portion of your operation. So we could reduce the business license fee, but you're probably going to see an increase in user fees or something like that.
But also we don't know, what's the current balance in our funds? Isn't it around 100,000 last time?
So,
Well, without Robert being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we defer that to another?
Yeah, I think because the challenge, I love to be able to just off the cuff tell you what cash balance you have in the airport fund, but that's proving challenging with the cash flow we have right now with the projects coming, with FAA money moving in and out and all of those things. It's.
I guess what I'm getting at is what's the justification to increase, user fees, lease rates, business fees, when if we've got a sustainable budget and we're not diminishing that, is all I'm saying.
Your cash is not diminishing, you're correct, but your expenses aren't going down either. So.
Any other comments, questions? Katie, cares?
So we were awarded a $30,000 grant through the CARES Act. And so this grant must be used on airport operating expenses. It had to do with the coronavirus aid that came out, that was signed by the president on March 27th, 2020. And it included a $10 billion in funds to be awarded to eligible U.S. airports. And we were one of those airports. No, the airports got 10 billion. We got 30,000. So I would actually like to say thank you to the mayor who did a lot of work in getting that fund and getting all the paperwork set up, and to Tyler who also helped out with that and that process.
And I'd like to thank Katie for catching it on all this stuff flying around through the internet. She's all over that stuff. So brought it to our attention so that it could actually happen. So pretty good volunteer.
I have one question. What can we use it
Oh, we have two wind sites. They're getting enclosed in the hangars. You never know really which, if it's really true, if the dragon is really looking out the correct way, why can't we get a windsock at the end of 3-0, much like Superior has? And then you have a chance, as you come in, you can get a better indication of the direction of the wind. Maybe this would be a nice little thing to use some of that money for.
Your suggestion, moving the segmented circle to the one end of the runway?
Well, I think what 90% of the use is 3-0, and usually the swims or whatever, they just come in without saying anything and land on 12 pretty much, and so they don't seem to have any trouble.
Craig?
Yes, sir. Mayor?
I'd make a recommendation to the board. The $30,000 can be used over a period of 3 years. So you could use 10,000 a year, you could use all 30 in 1 year, however that looks. There's a few restrictions on the funding from FAA, of course. And if we change that scope, then of course there's some paperwork with Diane we have to do. But I guess my recommendation for the sake of time, and because we're not in a hurry necessarily to spend this funding, is that perhaps a workshop be held with the airport board so that you guys can make a list of priority, make a list of things you want to do, or items you want to buy, prioritize that list, so that can be incorporated back into the budget. We can budget for an allotment of money so that at least we have spending authority for it. If we need to end, we can. But I guess one thing I would just share with the board is that I think the intent of the funding should go towards as much one-time expenditures as possible, because it's not money you can count on in after 3 years, if that makes sense. So you don't necessarily want to hire somebody so that in 3 years we have to lay them off because we can't afford to pay them anymore, unless you're willing to find a sustainable mechanism to offset that. So I think this is a conversation you should have in a workshop, or part of your next meeting, where you can kind of make that list up, and now you know it's available, you can think about it. So
So that could be used for
Not the foundation.
construction gets tricky, but items like windsocks and lawnmower blades, or staff time on something, those things are more flexible.
Justin?
What about a tractor and a mower?
Right.
The mower you're using, it's not made for mowing brush. It's get destroyed.
Yeah, it sounds like the board has a number of ideas for the funding. So that's what I would be interested in, is to hear you guys come together and figure out what it is. You may want to spend some significant time, up to an hour maybe, on what is this money going to be used for. So
We don't have time. That's a great idea, Mayor, but we don't have time on this meeting. So Katie, maybe you could set up a schedule or something.
Yeah, that'd be my suggestion.
Do some legwork, find out the ideas the guys have. But a mower other than mine is great.
I don't know, yours is fine.
Is it for sale?
I hadn't thought about that.
It was rhetorical. It's okay, Craig. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Next item, any more comments, questions? We'll have quite a bit of discussion on that. We put a magneto on it, make it really go. Right? Field discussion. Mr. Gardy would be here. He had some suggestions. And Katie, you have anything to say on that?
I think that had to do more with Nerdy.
Okay, Dustin?
I talked to Greg the other day. He said he probably wasn't interested. It's too much money for the return.
Okay.
Best thing would be to talk to Choice.
Okay.
If we wanted jet fuel.
Okay. All right, do you think we're at a time where we're getting close to jet fuel?
I would like it for the helicopters, but I mean, it's a lot of money to put out for who knows how much. We got like only 3 aircraft there is all that would use it that are based there.
Yeah.
So you might get people down from Missoula, maybe they don't want to go to Missoula.
We get a couple of improvements here. I mean, this is the end of a 15-year plan. So actually. So thanks to everybody for getting us this far. We're right down here to the dirt moving, rock pushing, asphalt laying part. Pretty cool. Katie, your report?
Well, the $30,000 grant happened. We put in new windsock, a new fire extinguisher, the flying lane sign is up, the runway fixture is back up. We replaced runway lights, and we put new windshield wipers on the courtesy vehicle. I also want to have our new volunteer stand up. Doesn't mind? No? Okay. Eric is our new volunteer. He's been help mowing, and he's been doing a great job. And I want to say thank you to all of our volunteers who've been out there mowing and really helping out and stepping up, especially with the construction project that came up. And that is all I have. I know we're on the time.
Thank you too, Steve. You've been out there several times, I know. Public comments? Any public comment?
Yeah. Friday the 6th of June, I've got 7 employees, aircraft maintenance service. One of you guys, we're all parked in the designated parking area. The mowing went on, and the mower picked up a rock or something and blasted it through, impacted the center of his rear window on his Subaru Outback. So my question is the airport or the town have insurance to cover this loss?
Get the information to our finance officer over at City Hall, and he'll turn it into insurance.
Sorry.
I've got the documented stuff for you too.
Yeah, just get that over to Robert, and he'll get the form for you and all that stuff.
All right.
How's the shop going?
Very well. Thank you. Very nice. Nice to be there.
REA, really like it. You've done. Any other public comments? Go ahead.
Don, when is the guy giving the talk at the EAA? Other people might want to know about that.
Yeah.
It's on a Monday.
Should be this Monday.
Coming Monday.
Next Monday, the 15th. Yeah.
The fellow's going to give a talk on the DC-3 that flew to Normandy.
That'll be up at the EAA hangar in the East Condos up at Missoula.
What time?
Brian Douglas, it'd be 7 o'clock.
Is it 7?
Yeah, 7 o'clock.
On the 15th.
7 o'clock on the 15th, next Monday. That's, you go in the entrance past North Star and just toward the ramp, that condo hangar that looks like a control tower. It's not a control tower. That's their hangar there. Or you can go to EAA517.org. They'll have the announcement there in direction.
EAA517.org. Any other public comments? Comments from the board, anybody?
So there's one trailer out there, I guess, behind the hangars. So I don't know, they probably ought to just give him a call, because he was here, that was Tim Mead. So he knows that it needs to be moved. Okay. Like Greg, Greg's out of town, he lives in Florida, he's back and forth, but his mail don't get to him, so he didn't even know about the parking situation. So he moved it, so if you have trouble, just call him. He has no problem moving stuff.
Okay.
So,
Any other comments? I'd like to thank all the volunteers. This is a pretty intense time, but we're coming to the end of a lot of planning here. Thanks for everybody attending today. I have a motion for adjournment.
Moved.
Second? All in favor? We're done. 1 minute, 1 hour and 11 seconds.
Thank you.